Hello everyone and welcome to another Stukent Expert Session. My name's Ian Fabiano and today we have with us Larry Kim, founder and CEO of Mobile Monkey. Before Larry founded Mobile Monkey, he founded the digital marketing company Wordstream, which recently sold for $130 million. Now he's gone all in on chatbots and Facebook Messenger marketing, and today he's going to share with us the 5 hacks that you can use to grow a company using chatbots. So without any further ado, Larry, I'll turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction. Today we're talking about our top 10 Facebook Messenger marketing hacks of all time. Specifically on the agenda today, we'll be talking mostly about unicorns, but if there's any time left over, I'm sure we'll have some room for messenger ads and chatbot marketing and all that stuff. Before getting into all the details of how to kill it with Facebook Messenger marketing and chatbots, I just wanted to introduce myself briefly. My name is Larry Kim. I'm slightly obsessed with unicorns. I started a company called Wordstream back in 2008. Literally started with nothing in my 20s, working out of a bakery called Panera Bread because of free rent and unlimited Diet Coke refills and free Wi-Fi. Company grew a lot over the last decade. It's now the largest PPC software company in the world, managing over $1 billion of ad spend for tens of thousands of companies worldwide. We were able to grow the revenues, pretty substantially over the last few years, and to the point where it's a $55 million business today that was actually acquired in July of 2018. So that was pretty fresh. A couple of people actually asked me, what that's like to sell a business. Quite honestly, it's kind of a relief because, I kind of do a lot of did a lot of blogging on the internet about how to grow your business and how to be a successful marketer, and it would have been totally embarrassing if that wasn't a success. Yeah, this would have been pretty embarrassing. Just kidding. Basically, in the last few months, I've started a new company. It's Mobile Monkey. It's a Facebook Messenger marketing platform. Things are going pretty well. We have millions of users, even though the product's just been released a couple of weeks ago. And just about me personally, I have 2 kids. One of them is brand new, about 3 months old, both boys. And I'm married and live in Harvard Square in Cambridge, where I am restoring this 200-year-old haunted house to its former glory. Should be another 2 or 3 months left on this 2-year project. Awesome. Enough about me. Back to our story. We're talking about Facebook Messenger marketing and chatbots. Why the heck should marketers care about Facebook Messenger and the chatbot marketing? Let me give you a couple of reasons. Reason number 1, there's more daily active users on Facebook on messaging applications, yet less than 1% of businesses have any ability to engage with these billions of people directly via messaging. Facebook Messenger in particular is a pretty popular platform with a 1.3 billion daily active users, and that was as of last year, so it's probably double by now. These are the same people that you're paying money to reach using Facebook ads or using your Facebook page. So what the heck, why aren't you reaching them on Facebook Messenger? The engagement is really high. It's like 10 to 80 times better. Typically in email marketing, you'll see 5% open rates is pretty typical. Facebook organic posts is typically 0 to 1% post visibility. Facebook Messenger, on the other hand, typically we're seeing 70 to 80% open rates within the first few minutes. So I think these are really compelling statistics, but I think where marketers kind of get confused is how specifically are they supposed to use all this chatbot and messenger marketing stuff to grow their business? Because it's really confusing. People sort of associate chatbots with virtual assistant technologies like those, Google Home or Alexa or Siri. And they're like, I don't know if I need to create a Siri for my business. You see what I'm saying? And by the way, you don't. Other people think that chatbots are, kind of the next generation of customer service, because it can automate, commonly asked customer service questions. And making things even more complicated, I think, is just there's a lot of confusion around like artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that tends to get included in all this hype around chatbots. I'm going to make it very simple here. I think of messaging as simply the next email. Think of it as just a way of communicating with your customers that allows you to actually reach them as opposed to just sending them and getting, algorithmically filtered. It allows you to not only send messages that will be seen, it's also more engaging content than you could ever have done using email. So for example, surveys, registrations, reminders, drip campaigns, etc. This is just messages that you can push to customers and prospects, and I think this is kind of how we wish email would have worked, but it's kind of broken right now. I'm so excited about Chatbot and Facebook Messenger marketing. I think it's actually the growth marketing hack of the next 5 years. Is this notion of chat blasting. Let me tell you a little bit about the history of chat blasting. Basically, how it used to work on Facebook is, if somebody messaged your page, your Facebook page, those messages would show up in your page inbox. And then occasionally, once in a blue moon, your social media guy would kind of look at those messages or not. But if they did look at them, they could reply to them manually by typing in a response. So that was like pretty crappy because nobody would ever answer those messages because it was kind of like a dumping ground of lost messages. So recently, in the last 2 years, Messenger has released an API for their messaging component, and it allows companies like MobileMonkey to create clever solutions for marketers. Unfortunately, using the API is very complicated. It's like you have to write software, and it's pretty annoying, and it's expensive. Usually for 99.9% of companies, this is a little too complicated. And so instead, what most companies do is they just use chatbot marketing tools like MobileMonkey, which allows you to import the contents of your Facebook inbox and to then just blast everybody, like do a chat blast to everyone who's ever messaged your page. So how does that work? Basically, it's pretty simple. It's like creating an email or creating like a web page. You just have to create some content to do your chat blast to your Messenger contact list. And then next step, you need to specify an audience to blast. So that's basically your contact list of all the people who have ever messaged your page in the past. And then you can just fire away. This is like chat blast the desired content to the desired audience. And you can see how this is feels a lot like Constant Contact or MailChimp or one of those email marketing programs, except that there's a big difference. These are sending out push notifications on mobile through chat, meaning people will actually see this stuff, as opposed to sending out stuff like, just crappy emails that'll get stuck in email filters. And so these are not only more visible, they're more engaging than email. See how you have those little buttons there, sign me up. It can actually walk the user through the sign-up flow in the messaging session. So that's pretty cool. I'll give you an example of how I use it. Whenever I have a new blog post, I chat blast it to all my competition, to all my subscribers. One of my subscribers is Neil Patel, and he reads all of my articles on chat blasting platforms. So on the Messenger, I know he reads it because I can see his avatar there at the bottom. And so some of you might be wondering, like, is this spam? It feels a little spammy, like pushing out every blog post via push notification. How does this compare with email blasting, which is where it's pretty typical that you would do an email blast for every new blog post. And so I just wanted to kind of compare and contrast the various engagement rates, like open rates and click-through rates for the different channels. And so I'm going to share something personal here. This is my email marketing stats for my various campaigns. It's typically around 20% open rate, around 1% open rate, or sorry, 1% click rate, 20% open rate. Now my Messenger marketing campaigns, on the other hand, typically get 3 times higher read rates, so more like 60% read rates. But where it gets really crazy is that it's typical to get 20% click-through rates. So people clicking on the buttons and clicking on the links, it's about 20 times higher than email. So if you multiply those through together, you'll find that chat blasting is roughly 60 times more engaging than an email blast. So one chat contact is worth 60 emails based on their probability of actually reading and interacting with the content that you're sending. And so my response is this spam? Is absolutely not. It is not spam, because like if it was spam, why the heck is the engagement so good? It's because you're sending very valuable content to a very targeted audience, and people value that. And so basically, messaging is fundamentally less spammy than email. Email marketing is kind of a spammer's delight. You can just buy a bunch of lists of emails and just add them into a server and blast away. And even though those people didn't opt into getting messages, you can just send out gazillions of them for cheap. And then when people ask to unsubscribe, you know, you're supposed to honor those, but not everyone does. And the content that you're sending out isn't very dynamic or interactive at all. Messaging solves all these problems, making them impossible for spammers to do these kinds of things. And that's why I'm so bullish on this channel. So moving along, I want to talk about part 2 today. We're talking about Facebook Messenger chatbot marketing building blocks and structure, how to build one of these little little chatbots. So this here on the left, this is an automated chatbot conversation. This is happening, automatically in real time. Like if you were to look at my Facebook page, we typically respond to thousands of automated chats in any given day. It's kind of like combining email marketing because it's a push notification, but combining it with website marketing because websites can be made to be a little bit more interactive. And so the question becomes, well, how does a typical marketer make this little thing? Well, as I was mentioning before, most marketers just use something like Mobile Monkey, a visual chatbot builder. How it works is pretty simple. Just need to describe to you the difference between static and dynamic chat content. So static content, that's where you just load basic stuff like text or images or lists or galleries, videos, that kind of stuff, just static content. You just load that content into a page. And this page is very simple. It's a bunch of blocks that are stacked one on top of each other, which get sent sequentially to the user. And then of course you can send that page to a user, that content to the user, and those images just look rendered. They get rendered in a messaging window. Okay, so I think static content is pretty obvious. It's just you just create basic images or content and send it to the users. And there's some fancy options, like you can send video or you can send attachments. All these are just static content. But where it gets really interesting is you can use dynamic chat elements, like the ability to collect registration form data. So think of that as like a sign-up page or a purchase page, those types of things that you typically do on web pages, you can enable through chat. And the way you do this is you just create chat forms and chat questions, quick questions. They're the same thing. A chat form is just a sequence of questions, whereas a quick question is just one individual question. So what you can do is you can start asking them questions like, so what time slot would you like to choose? The 9 o'clock or the noon or the 3 p.m. Webinar slot for our webinar registration. We can ask them for their email addresses and other contact information. And then rather than having to send them to some stupid registration page on a mobile clunky website, you can just ask them for this information directly in the chat session and save those responses to variables, just like how you save responses from your website forms to variables so you can use them elsewhere. And so one of the coolest things you can do with these forms or these quick questions is to ask simple questions so that you can segment your audience. So this is for my webinar registration form. One of the questions I'm asking is, are you an agency or an in-house advertiser? And so the reason why you would want to do this kind of segmentation is so you could customize what follows. So for example, if the user picked an agency, you could ask some kind of a follow-up agency related question. If they selected an in-house advertiser as their status, you could ask them about like what kind of work they're doing in-house. You see what I'm saying? So these are called different messenger funnels. And what's so cool about these different messenger funnels is not only being able to customize the content that the user sees in real time, but also for the follow-ups later when you're doing the chat blasting, you can create audiences based on conversational criteria. So if you could create a custom audience of all the people who said that they were audiences, or who said that they were agency marketers, okay? A custom audience of agency marketers based on the conversations that have happened. You could then do a chat blast to only those people, like not the entire list, but just the people who identified themselves as agencies. This is an example of a super targeted chat blast that talks about like an agency marketing webinar on how to grow your agency business using chatbots. It got an 85% response rate, and that's incredible because we are sending such specific content to such a relevant audience. The other thing that I love about these forums on chat is they're so much more mobile friendly than websites. So you can have people send their information but not have to type it in. So if you're asking people for their email address or their mailing address or their current address or their current location, that kind of stuff, their phone numbers. Facebook already has that information on file. And so what you can do is you could just pre-fill the data with their information, and the customer can then send that information to you by clicking on the pre-filled button labels. Okay, so we're at chapter 3 here. I wanted to teach you a little bit of tips on how to chat blast like a master blaster. So specifically, here's a couple tips that'll help you, from getting banned. So for starters, it's a really good idea when you're chat blasting to include the unsubscribe informations at the bottom of your messages, just like how at the bottom of emails there's usually like unsubscribe information. Another thing that I find is that it's better to keep the messages short. So don't just take all your email blast content and just dump the whole thing into a chat blast. I mean, that's going to be just too long. Instead, what I do is I make the messages very, very short and then ask the user to engage. So like one sentence, it says like, do you want to know the hacks on how to grow your messenger contact list? And then I just put a button that says like, send me the secrets. That seems to be the key to high engagement, is just kind of giving it away little bit by little bit. In terms of drip marketing campaigns, you can send out emails, you can send out chat messages using a sequence based on an action. So if the user, for example, signs up for your webinar, you can send out a series of reminders or other drip sequence campaigns, and my suggestion here is just front load them. Send them as many as you can, in the first 24 to 48 hours, because I don't think people really remember who they were chatting with, like 3 weeks ago or something like that. And then of course the key to super high unicorn level user engagement is to segment your way to success. Just always be asking the customers different questions about themselves so that you can create more customized content, so that you can create more specified chat blasts for those audience. There's a few rules to this game. You can't just chat blast forever. There's something called the 24+1 chat blasting rule. So that all it says is, it just says that when you're doing a chat blast, it asks you to describe the purpose of your chat blast. And basically there's two categories. One is called promotional and the other one is called non-promotional. Promotional chat blasts are this is two examples given by Facebook. Super Monday deals, eat one beef burger, get another one free, discount code, blah, blah, blah. Okay, those are promotional chat blasts. So there's some limitations on how often you can do promotional chat blasts. But there is no limits on how much non-promotional content that you can send. So non-promotional content could be like a blog post, or important announcements that are not related to sales, or shipping confirmations, or like all sorts of weather updates and stuff like this. That's non-promotional. And so the key thing here is that you have to apply for something called subscription messaging. So in your page settings under the messenger platform settings, just apply for that permission called subscription messaging. And there's a blog post here that you can read. Basically, it provides you with the ability with the privilege to send unlimited non-promotional content to your chat contacts for in perpetuity. Now, there are a few restrictions on chat blasting promotional content, specifically in the first 24 hours when a new content comes into your system. You can send them as much promotional or non-promotional content as you wish, but beyond that first 24 hours, you can still send non-promotional content provided that you have the subscription messaging permission approved, which is very easy to apply for. However, there is a limit for subsequent promotional content blasts. They are saying you can only do one additional promotional blast, and so so that's kind of how they're doing it. There is one rather large loophole, though. You can, because there's no limit on non-promotional blasts, you can send non-promotional content to reincarnate sessions like, hi, quick question, do you like unicorns, yes or no? So that's a non-promotional question. Regardless of what the user selects as their answer, if they choose yes or no, the user is then reincarnated. It's a new session because they've just engaged with you right there. And so that resets the clock. It's a new session for the next 24 hours. You can send them unlimited promotional content and plus one additional promotional piece of Chat Blast after that first 24 hours. So just keep sending out non-promotional stuff to re-engage them, and regardless of how they answer these things. Like another idea would just be sending out a question like, how can we help you today? Just something very open-ended, and no matter what they ask, whatever they respond, they're a new session. So lastly, I just wanted to explain, like, what if your business really wants to keep sending out like these promotional updates, like Super Monday deals, eat one beef burger and get another one free. If this is like all you desire is just to constantly send out this one message or something similar, well then there's a way to do this where you can pay for it. It's called sponsored messaging. It's a new format. Unlike other ads that show up in the news feed, this ad format actually shows up as a push notification in Messenger. So it's just as if a friend messaged you, except that it's coming from a business. So basically what you do is you just select your audience and provide the promotional content that you want to blast to the audience, and that's it's just a way to be able to send promotional content without getting in trouble with those rules. But you do have to pay for it. It's not that expensive. It's maybe 5 or 10 cents per message, which is still pretty cheap. So we're down to section 4, which is how to grow your Chat Blast contact list. Specifically, how to get tons and tons of Facebook Messenger subscribers so that you can have a big audience. See, in the olden days of marketing, 20 years ago, the goal was for marketers to get these stupid landing pages set up on their websites to drive signups so that we could send them emails in their customer inboxes. 5 to 7 years ago, social media was really popular and everyone was going crazy trying to get people to like the fan page so that the fan page's content would show up in users' newsfeed. Unfortunately, that doesn't work anymore. Today, in 2018, the goal is to get people to message your business, okay, so that you can send them chat blasts. You see how this game has changed a little bit? And basically, in 2018 and beyond, you need to build your Messenger contact list. This is not the same thing as page fans. Page fans are useless. This is you're trying to get people to opt into messaging from your page. I have nearly 10,000 subscribers so far this year, and keep in mind, like, you might be thinking only 10,000. Well, one chat subscriber is worth 60 emails on average, 60 to 100 emails. So it's almost like I have a 600,000 to 1 million email list here in terms of the engagement. I'm adding 1 to 3,000 Messenger contacts every month. How is this possible? Basically, what we don't do is we're just not waiting for people to just message our page, because if you play that waiting game, you'll be waiting forever. Instead, there's about 5 different traps that you can lay to get people to opt into messaging. One of them is called a autoresponder or a Facebook comment guard. You attach this to your Facebook organic posts, and so that when someone responds to one of your organic posts, they are sent a message via Messenger, and if they respond to that message, they will be opted in to your Messenger applications because they have responded to you via messaging. And so if you want to try this out for yourself, just go to bit.ly/fb-post-guard and just drop a comment on that post, and you will see, you will get a message in Messenger, and if you respond to that, you'll see that you get opted into messaging. Don't worry, you can unsubscribe at any time by typing stop. So given this awesome, powerful technology, what I like to do is I like to find content that stirs a tremendous amount of comments, right? Comment bait, basically. It's kind of like what BuzzFeed does. They just do content that everyone wants to, share their opinions on. And so if you create or share that kind of content and apply comment guards on those posts, this is an example of a crazy post that got 714 comments. This can be a very, very powerful way to grow your subscriber list very quickly. Another thing is, like, I changed the nature of the content that I'm sharing. So I used to just send out a lot of like informational stuff, like an article on my opinions on something. These days, what I find works better is asking people for their opinions. So, here's a riddle, and I'm asking people to guess the answer in the comments. I will then send you the correct answer as well as the explanation via messaging. And so this generated 57 new subscribers. How do you set up these comment guards? It's very simple. It's kind of like remarketing. Basically, you choose some content, like some kind of an offer or content to send to users. You specify a frequency cap. That just means how often you want to send them that offer if they engage with your content. And then lastly, you just have to choose which posts to apply the autoresponders to, either every post on your page or to specific pages. And that's very powerful. Another really powerful way to get people to message your page and opt into messaging is using the send to messenger button, which is a technology that replaces clunky landing page forms. See that blue button? If somebody clicks on that blue button, then your page gets sent all of their contact information, as well as the ability to do push notifications to that user. This is a huge improvement over those clunky landing pages from like 25 years ago. The send to messenger button doesn't require, that you fill out anything, and also it's going to guarantee that all that the information being filled out is actually correct, and so that's very powerful. It's also more mobile friendly. How do you do this? All you do is you just use Mobile Monkey, grab the code for your send to messenger button, and then put it into your landing page. So that people can click on it and subscribe. Another really powerful way to get tons of contacts is to just enable something called a Facebook Messenger chat widget to your website, and then again, you can get this from Mobile Monkey, the code to make this work. And basically, what happens is that all these chats happen through Messenger, like they're being routed through Messenger, and so that just means that a chat is no longer anonymous. So, if someone says hello, they've opted into messaging for your page, and you have all their information, like their profile photo, first and last name, location, time zone, gender, etc. And that's very powerful. Compare that to those other legacy chat platforms like Live Chat or Live Person or Drift, and those are all kind of anonymous chat platforms where you don't really know who you're chatting with, and you certainly don't have the ability to send out push notifications to those users. And so another awesome way to get people to subscribe is using something called a Facebook Messenger checkbox plugin. And so that's where you just add this little checkbox to your website fields, so that if you're asking people for emails, you might as well also have them opt into Messenger. I do this on all my blog subscription pages. I'm not saying you shouldn't do email. I'm just saying, like, if you're collecting emails, why the heck wouldn't you also collect Messenger contacts? You see what I'm saying? And of course, you can link to your chatbot pages directly from, say, your existing email campaigns, because I'm trying to migrate people off of my email marketing campaigns, which are useless, onto my chat marketing campaigns, which are awesome. And so on every email marketing campaign that I ever send out, there's a link to subscribe via Messenger. You can try that out yourself by typing bit.ly/FBBlaster. And so I have officially kissed most of Facebook ads goodbye, with the exception of this one particular ad format. It's a send to messenger ad format, which allows me to capture everyone's contact information as well as opt them into messaging if they press that button. And basically, it's a really powerful ad format. You just create the ad and then send them to some Mobile Monkey pages, like some chat pages that you've set up, like for example a webinar registration page, and have them register through chat. The reason why this is so awesome is because in the old way of doing Facebook ads, you would pay for clicks to your website. And when they go to your website, maybe 1 or 2 or 3% of people would actually fill out the form, which is like a pretty 2% conversion rate, which means you could spend $500 to get one lead. The new way is a Facebook Messenger ad. You pay for clicks on those send to messenger ads, but immediately when someone clicks on that ad, they get opted into messaging and you have their contact information. And so this is really amazing because that means you can engage with them 100% of these people right away, right now, rather than waiting. So I use Messenger ads to grow my own business. We are using these to drive more business, and I'm getting leads at $3 to $5. Guys, I haven't been able to get lead prices down to $3 to $5 since like 2014. These days it's like hundreds of dollars. You see what I'm saying? This isn't in competitive marketplaces like in the United States where ad prices are expensive, and I think this is very valuable. Some people ask me like, how is this different from lead ads, which are also another fantastic ad format on Facebook ads. The difference between lead ads and messenger ads is that messenger ads allow for qualification and engagement immediately. So like right as soon as someone clicks that button, you can start chatting up that person programmatically to kind of get their information and kind of qualify their interest. Lead ads, on the other hand, those leads end up in this dumping ground in a CRM somewhere, and you have to wait for somebody to actually manually go in, get that information, and respond to it. So I think messenger ads are significantly more valuable. So those, in summary, those are my top 5 messenger and chatbot marketing hacks of all time. Here they are, listed out. I'm not going to read them out, but you can get the slide deck from the team here. What does it all mean? Messenger marketing. Just a couple of thoughts from wrapping this up today. Chatbots mean many things to many people, but for me and for a growing majority of marketers, chatbots are pure top of the funnel marketing tools for lead generation, marketing automation, lead qualification, online advertising. Hopefully the illustrations that I've shown you today give you a full picture of how powerful this thing is as a top of the funnel lead generation tool. As I mentioned before, I just view it as kind of like the next email kind of thing. There's a profound change, generational shift happening right now as to the communication preferences of an entire generation. Today, more people prefer receiving communications via messaging than email and social media combined. This is a shift that we haven't seen since 25 years ago, when email overtook phone calls as sort of the preferred way to communicate. And this is a once in a lifetime kind of shift. Your customers are already spending most of their time on chat as opposed to email and social. Why the heck are you not there? So we've teamed up with Stukent to offer a very special promotional pricing offer for Mobile Monkey Professional Edition for just $49 for an entire year. That's roughly $4 a month. Our normal price is $49 a month. So you can get all the tools and features like chat blasting and drip campaigns and integrations with Salesforce and all those types of features and functions for just $49 for an entire year. Use the code Stukent to make this happen, and we'd love to work with you on this.